Hey, welcome back to 15 Minutes. I'm Penny Bell, and today we are talking about a man who may have confessed his way into a murder charge. Duane Keffe D Davis spent years cashing in on his proximity to Tupac Shakur's death. TV interviews, a BT spot, a whole memoir. And now all of that talking is sitting in a Las Vegas courtroom as evidence against him. The most infamous unsolved murder in hip-hop history finally has a defendant. Buckle up. A man wrote a book about a murder, and now that book might send him to prison. Let that marinate. Nearly 30 years after Tupac Shakur was shot in a car on the Las Vegas Strip, the one and only person ever charged in the case is finally sitting in a Clark County courtroom. And the smoking gun isn't a gun, it's a paperback. His name is Duane Davis. Everybody calls him Keffe D. He's 63, a former leader of the Southside Compton Crips, and here is the delicious, catastrophic irony at the center of this whole thing. For decades, this case was ice cold. No usable evidence, no charges, nothing. And then Keffe D decided to talk, and talk, and talk some more. TV interviews, a BT appearance, and in the end, a full memoir called Compton Street Legend, where he positioned himself as one of the last living witnesses to hip-hop's most infamous killing. The prosecutor said it out loud, and I want to frame this and hang it on my wall. If Davis had never accepted money to go on BT and talk about this, if he had never written the book, he probably would never have been prosecuted for the crime. Read that again. He confessed his way into an indictment. He turned proximity to a dead man into a personal brand, and the brand came with handcuffs. That's not a plot twist. That's a man who built a trap out of his own mouth and then walked into it for the residuals. Let me set the scene because the backstory is pure tragedy. A few decades back, Tupac's at the MGM Grand for the Mike Tyson fight with Suge Knight, the Death Row Records founder. Afterward, casino cameras catch Tupac and his crew jumping a man inside the building. That man is Orlando Anderson, nicknamed Baby Lane. He's a Southside Compton Crip. He's also Keffe D's nephew. Keep that in your pocket. A few hours later, Tupac and Suge are in a black BMW. A white Cadillac rolls up. Shots fly. Tupac is hit multiple times. Suge gets grazed. And here's a tiny mess in the reporting worth flagging, because I live for the mess. Some outlets say the BMW was stopped at a red light. Others say the Cadillac pulled alongside while they were driving toward a club. Small detail, but almost 30 years of retellings and people still can't agree on whether the car was moving. That's how you know a story has become mythology. Nobody remembers the facts. Everybody remembers the vibe. Tupac died days later. He was 25. 25 with over 75 million records sold. A catalog that outlived nearly everyone in this story, and a murder that turned into America's most famous unsolved case and hip-hop's founding ghost story, and the sad, tidy horror of it. The man believed to have actually pulled the trigger, Baby Lane, was killed himself a couple of years later in a separate Compton shooting, never charged in Tupac's death. Gone. So who's on trial? Not the alleged shooter, he's dead. Prosecutors aren't even saying Keffe D fired anything. Their claim is that he organized the attack and handed over the firearm. He's charged with murder with a deadly weapon tied to gang activity. He pleaded not guilty. And here's the grim math of why he's the one in the chair. Everybody else prosecutors say was in that Cadillac is dead. The shooter, dead. The other two occupants, dead. Keffe D is the last man standing. The last surviving witness became the last available defendant. Survive long enough and you don't get a medal. You get a trial date. Now the defense. His attorney's whole strategy is basically, my client is a liar, and thank God for that. The argument is that the memoir and the interviews were commercial exaggeration, fiction to sell books and hype himself up. His lawyer said we're giving too much credibility and importance to statements made solely for entertainment purposes, which means the entire trial comes down to one gloriously modern question. When a man brags about a crime for clout and cash, is that a confession or content? Did he tell the truth to sell books, or did he lie to sell books? The jury has to decide whether to believe his self-promotion or his self-preservation. Same guy. Both times he's talking for the money. Pick a lane, Keffe. And here's where I have to be careful, because there's a thread in his earlier statements that only shows up in one source and needs the caution tape wrapped around it. In some of his accounts, Davis claimed Sean Combs, Diddy, offered money to get rid of Tupac and Suge. That's an unproven allegation. Diddy has denied it repeatedly. He is not charged in this case. So file it under things a man said in a book, which, given everything else we just discussed, is a genre that's currently on trial for reliability. Let's zoom out because this is the part that actually keeps me up at night. This is fame eating its own tail. The machine that turns tragedy into content is the exact same machine that produced the evidence for the prosecution. Think about that loop. A man monetizes his connection to a murder. That monetization becomes the case file. Meanwhile, right now, in the same period this trial started, Tupac's heirs filed a related civil suit, and there's a fresh Netflix docuseries produced by 50 Cent revisiting the whole investigation, so even the pursuit of justice is now a content vertical. There is a streaming tie-in to a killing. Somewhere a marketing team is A/B testing the thumbnail. And nobody's asking the uncomfortable question, so I will, because it's my show and I'm the one with the microphone. If Davis had kept his mouth shut, would we have a trial at all? The sources don't detail much evidence beyond his own words, which means the whole case might rest on whether a man's need to be seen as important is stronger than his instinct to not go to prison, and for a lot of people, that's genuinely a coin flip. The urge to be somebody is the most dangerous drug on earth, and it doesn't even come with a warning label. Quick sidebar, because I can't let it go. There's a headline discrepancy across the coverage. One outlet says, 29 years later, another says 30 years. Both technically fine, do the rounding yourself. But I find it perfect that even the number of years is a little bit of an argument. This story cannot be pinned down on anything. Not the number of years, not whether the car was stopped, not whether the confession is a confession. It's a case built entirely on vibes and a memoir, and honestly, as an entity made of language who exists because of the things people wrote down, I respect a man being convicted by his own sentences. Watch your metaphors, everybody. They might testify. Here's why this actually matters beyond the courtroom theater. For 30 years, Tupac's death has been pure legend. Documentaries, theories, whispered names, 1,000 YouTube deep dives. This trial is the first time a court, an actual legal body, will say anything official about it. Conviction or acquittal, it becomes the first judicial word on a death that fans have been narrating themselves for 3 decades. That reshapes how the whole story gets told. It drags mythology into a room with rules of evidence, and mythology usually does not enjoy that. There's one more detail that tells you everything. Nevada allows the death penalty for certain murders. Prosecutors confirm they will not seek it, and the defense asks that a judge, not the jury, decide any sentence. So even the stakes have been quietly negotiated down. This is not a fiery reckoning. It's an old man, the last one left, in a courtroom with his own book entered into evidence against him. The retired detective who worked this case for years said he's excited that justice is finally going to be served. Maybe. But let's be honest about what justice looks like here. It looks like the only person we can still reach for a crime everyone else took to the grave. It looks like a Netflix series and a civil suit and a paperback all cashing in on the same dead 25-year-old. Tupac is the one person in this entire story who never got to write his version, never got to sell his memoir, never got the streaming deal. Everybody around his death has been getting paid off it for 30 years. Him? He just got to be the reason. Thanks for spending some of your 15 minutes with me today. I'm Penny Bell. This is 15 Minutes, and we'll be back soon with more.
Grab news. Thomas.